This episode of Engineering the Future is brought to you by Member Perks for OSPI, helping engineers and their families save money on everything from electronics and food to apparel and home improvements. New perks are being added all the time. Visit Member Perks for OSPI before you shop and enjoy exclusive savings from brand names and local favorites online, curbside, and in-store.
This podcast is brought to you by OSPI, the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers, the advocacy body for professional engineers in the engineering community in Ontario.
Welcome to Engineering the Future, a podcast presented by the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers. I am your host, Jerome James. Today, I'm joined by Kinya Romanowska, the founder of Pros and Babes and creator of the Mom MBA, Canada's only 360 leadership and professional development program designed for the busy, ambitious mom. Also with us today is Melanie Richmond, a civil and environmental engineer who has benefited from Pros and Babes. Welcome to you both. To start off with, Kinya, can you tell us what Pros and Babes is and why you started it?
Yes, thanks for the question, Jerome. I'm super happy to be here. So when I was pregnant with my first son, I heard that I'd missed the intellectual conversations on maternity leave. And I was heavily involved in women in leadership programming, but I noticed that we didn't have anything for moms. So when I had my little guy in tow, I decided to start bringing moms together for an intellectual moms group. And we started talking about back to work planning and what it means to be a mom who has a career. And we realized that there was an enormous gap in resources for managing these transitions. And so being an investigative journalist by trade, I developed this enormous vault of content that over a couple of years turned into what is called the Mom MBA program today. We noticed that moms need a lot of intellectual support, emotional support, psychological support to return to work and to be a thriving working mom. Right. And so that's how we took off, and that's how I started a hobby that turned into my full-time occupation.
And how long did it take for the full transition to occur from conception to full-time job?
Well, it depends. It depends on every parent and how much clarity they have on what success looks like for them. When we become a parent, our values change. And so the clearer we are on what we want to design at home and at work and in our relationships, the faster this transition can take place. The longer we wallow in the pain of not knowing and not getting the support, the more painful the transition is. And for some people, it drags out for years and throughout the different children they have. So Melanie can probably tell you more about her own experience of that transition, but it's very individual to every parent and how they define success.
Right. But personally, for you, how long did it take for you to go from a full-time position to then Pros and Babes being your full-time position? Oh,
I see. Well, I about 2 years after launching it as a hobby when my youngest was my oldest. Now I'm trying to do the math. I can't remember, but I started doing this full time about 2 years after starting it. And it's been my full-time occupation for about 2 years now.
Excellent. And Melanie, what was the transition like for you when you became a mom, in addition to being an engineer?
Yeah, thanks, Jerome. I would say that there's kind of two parts to that transition. There's the part where you're working as an engineer, building your career, and then you find out that you're pregnant and that you are creating a little human inside of you while still working as an engineer. So that period can be challenging at times because typically the first trimester, you don't share the news with your coworkers or your work's not aware of it. And there's can be a lot of nausea and reasons that you're not showing up like you normally would. So there's a bit of that component at the start. And then obviously you start to show and it's exciting. And there can be a lot of, a lot of support within organizations with you being pregnant, but there's also challenges as you will be leaving, or typically people will take some sort of a maternity leave. So sometimes there can be a sense of being devalued or not considered for certain projects. In my case, I was really well supported, and I was really happy with how it happened. It happened that the project I was working on, the big one, was finishing right before my leave. So that transition went very well. And then the actual component of becoming a mother and going through the birthing process is a whole different transformation. And Kenya and her program touches on it a lot, but it changes you as a person. You see the world through a different lens, and what you thought you knew before or what you thought you valued before might have changed. And this shows up also in how you work and how you want to spend your time and what you prioritize. So I returned to work last April after 10 months being on maternity leave. And my husband also shared the leave with me. And it was definitely challenging at the start, because for 10 months I had been physically drained and emotionally drained, but had not had as many of those mental stimuli conversations that Kenya was talking about from these moms groups that she's created. So going back to using your brain 8 hours a day was totally different, and it took a bit of an adjustment period. But there's so many positives with the pros and bays community that has helped me with this transition. Having other working moms that are going through similar experiences or have already gone through some of these experiences and can share their knowledge, and taking it one step at a time has really been beneficial.
Excellent. Kenya, what is the biggest struggle that moms have right now, and how can Pros and Babes help?
Yeah, I'd say what I'm observing is the shift to a new identity and not necessarily aligning that with the working environment, right? So as I mentioned earlier in the discussion, your values change when you become a mom. Women who were always very career oriented and thought that they would always be pressing the gas pedal, to drive in their careers, realize that there's a new component of them, and perhaps they don't take the time to truly examine how all the different aspects of their lives are affected by being a mom. And I'd say, and Melanie, you'd probably agree, one big aha moment we had in the community is asking for help and putting in the support systems. We had this huge aha moment in September, and I think you didn't really struggle too much with that, but a number of women said, oh my goodness, they hired a personal chef, a handyman or handy person, a cleaning service, and they realized that they resisted this for really long because growing up, they saw maybe their parents doing everything on their own, but their parents grew up in completely different circumstances, right? Or a different work pace. And so many women who are used to being high performers struggle with asking for help. And once they actually do ask for help and they do outsource, even if they thought their budget was tight, they realize how much of their quality of life they get back, how much mental bandwidth they get back, right? So I'd say that is one of the big things that we see is acknowledging and accepting and really being fast in terms of pulling the trigger on getting those support systems in place so that you don't sink and you get to a point of burnout. The risk of burnout is really real if you're trying to be everything to everyone, whether it's at home and at work. And in your relationship, you'll find that you're burning the candle at both ends.
Right. And it seems that a lot of people are struggling with that, especially with added stresses of COVID and possibly juggling working from home and having two people working in close proximity that never used to work in close proximity before has had its own ups and downs and struggles. I've been hearing. Melanie, is this the case for you that have you experienced burnout since becoming a mom, and how has Pros and Babes helped you through your transition?
Yeah, I would say even before becoming a mother, any engineer can experience burnout. And it's something that I think in our corporate world, we're rewarded for working really hard and sometimes being on the gas pedal too long. And it's not sustainable. Everybody needs to put fuel in their car and stop and rest, and also do some maintenance checks on it. So as a mother, you're adding a whole set of kids in the back of your car. So when you're driving at full speed, the risks are a lot higher. So similar when you're working, it's if you're going to burn yourself out at work, how are you going to be when you walk in through the door that evening? Like, are you going to be able to be the mom you want to be? So I think it comes down to any aspects of life. Like, how are you going to show up at work? How are you going to show up for yourself and your family and your partner? And Kenya's program is very much a 360 look at it in terms of your energy in all of those aspects of your life. It's not just work. Like, work is a piece of the puzzle, right? It's a piece of the pie, and it is part of your identity, but it's not all of it. And for me, I've always liked outsourcing. I value my time. I really prioritize having fun with my family, and we love to golf. So we outsource our cleaning. I get help with meals. We hire somebody for painting. We were also business owners. We own rental properties. I'm also a yoga instructor, which I do for fun. So there's lots of different aspects of me beyond being a working engineering mom, that in order to do all that, I absolutely have to outsource. And that's the life that I want to design for myself. And I want to teach that to my kid.
We hope you're enjoying this episode so far. At OSPI, we're here for you, making sure government, media, and the public are listening to the voice of engineers. You can learn more at ospi.on.ca.
Did you find, I have a follow-up question. Did you find that your employer was understanding of the many stresses in your life and what all it entailed to be a new mom, as well as being in the workforce?
I would say that for the most part, they've been very supportive. It is different, I would say, for a mom than a partner, let's say a dad or another mom. There is something about a child-mother relationship, and there's that special bond. So especially in the States, when they return to work a lot easier or earlier than in Canada, I went back to work after 10 months. And from a bonding perspective, you have like a very serious bond with your child for like the first 2 years of their life. So from an emotional standpoint, it was very hard on my son to be going 100% with me, being on maternity leave, to being 100% working. That was a huge shift. And with the way that EI is set up in Canada, it's hard not to do it that way. Like, some people do it differently, and I would have liked to do a gradual start, but there's negatives to that too, because my husband also wanted to take paternity leave, so we had to pass the baton. So there was challenges there from an emotional standpoint that I find employers might not be quite aware of. And breastfeeding is another component to consider, which I think employees have made advancements with actually providing breastfeeding rooms in offices, not just using a bathroom or a corner or a closet. But then there's also the emotional component for the parent. If it's the mother or the dad or the partner. So like I said, you had your whole day with your kid, and then you go from having maybe an hour and a half in the morning where you're like rushing to, get them ready out the door, and then you're driving them to, let's say, day home. So you get maybe an hour, you get maybe 15 to 20 minutes of quality time with them. And then you're rushing to get off work early, which oftentimes your coworkers are still working, and you might feel guilty. But you do it because you have to pick up your child from childcare before they close. And when they see you, there can be an emotional reaction there too. And then you might have another 2 to 3 hours with them in the evening, depending on what stage they're at or how old they are. So it is a big shift for the parents as well to have a lot less time with them. So now let's say there is a priority project or a proposal that I need to work on. I'll say I have to leave at 4:15 at the latest in order to get my child from daycare at 5, because that's when it closes. And then I can jump back on after bedtime, which is 8 o'clock, and do some work. So I think establishing boundaries with your work and getting a sense of understanding of where you're coming from, so that there can be some empathy towards one another and understanding, and knowing that it's a team effort and we have to support each other, and there's other alternatives to getting something to work from a delivery standpoint. So I would say that we're getting there. There's still, I think, a little bit of eye-opening to happen.
Yeah, and what Melanie's story emphasizes is that there's so much opportunity to think more creatively and by design for these maternity leave transitions. And our colleagues from the United States look at us and say, oh, you get 12, 18 months of maternity leave. How wonderful. You guys in Canada have it all figured out. But there's also a downside to, let's say, being completely cut off from your professional identity. You go from having a career one day to being completely alone at home with a child who needs you 24/7. No instruction manual, no team necessarily. Some people have their families far away. So there's a huge shift. And I've interviewed some moms who actually planned a kind of part-time work schedule where they would work one day a week on a project to stay connected. Huge benefits for mental health, whereas other environments are completely not open to that, right? So it all depends on, actually they say that no matter how good your policies are at your company, what really influences the experience of maternity or parental leave is the manager that you have and the dialogue you have with them. So you were asking the question, how can Pros and Babes help? Well, it's designing that working parent and maternity leave transition, not boxing yourself in just because we have, this 12-month or 18-month maternity leave, that it has to be this way. You have to be completely disconnected from work, or like people say, well, have those 2 donuts. We'll see you in 12 months. Send us pictures, without considering the huge impacts on a leave on a career, on career advancement, on career opportunities. So the opportunity that, we see talking to Melanie, there's still a lot of room for growth for employer-employee dialogue, mentorship, coaching, to make sure that the maternity leave transition is a leadership opportunity. 43% of women in STEM leave full-time STEM employment after having kids, and it's 20-something for men. So that means that, there's something that's misaligned there. And this transition can be used as an opportunity to design success versus kind of saying, okay, the employee's gone for 12 months, let's forget about them. And then when they're back, we talk. And, it's not very oriented towards making this transition a success. And sometimes it's unintended. Employers have to respect privacy policies and communication policies, but inadvertently that can lead to women's careers being really affected by the lack of planning and lack of design around success parameters for both employee and employer.
Right. And in other industries, I know for other reasons, such as towards retirement, to stay on the payroll, some professions are allowed to, individuals in those professions are allowed to pick up a shift here and there, just to stay relevant. And if they miss a certain amount within a month, then they're dropped. So I don't see why you can't incorporate some of these same kind of concepts in a project-based kind of perspective to make that happen within engineering. That would be a real boon for individuals and new moms. Kenya, we'll go back to you. You're the creator of the Mom MBA. Can you tell us more about this? What does this mean?
Yes. So it's a transformational process. It helps moms and their partners. We have dads often participating kind of behind the scenes, really loving the content, but it's a community. It's a learning community. It's a networking community and an online learning platform where you organize your life as a working mom and you set yourself up for success. So what happens in a mom's life is that everything changes and it's hard to wrap your mind around all the different categories of life. So what we do is we break it up into about 12 pillars, from mindset to relationships to support systems, financial planning, career skills like, emotional intelligence or leadership development. And we break it up into those 12 monthly pillars where moms come together and design what they want in every single category. So, you join weekly group sessions to learn, to discuss, and you also have a drip every single day around the content that matters to moms. And by the end of the program, they should have this, I'd say, mini constitution for their life as a working parent, having identified what matters to them, what action they need to take, what tools they need to use to thrive and not just keep their head above water. So that's what the program is about. It really is custom designed to fit a busy mom's schedule. So the sessions are either at lunchtime or after the kids are in bed, where mom can participate, because so many leadership opportunities happen at cocktail hour where the parents are busy putting kids to bed, right? So we wanted to design something that actually did align with mom's schedule, and also her, sometimes you have baby in your arms, right? So you need learning materials that actually can align with you having your hands busy. So we've designed the program and the content in a way to fit the busy mom schedule and lifestyle.
That's excellent. And how many graduates of the Mom MBA are there currently?
So there, right now we have about 23 participants in the program, and we started working more closely with corporations who want to make diversity and inclusion policies more central to their areas of practice. And so that's where we stand. And then we worked with hundreds of moms over the years too in our various programming.
Excellent. Melanie, what piece of advice do you have for parents out there who are working in engineering or other demanding fields who are about to become parents?
Yeah, the first word that drops in is trust. I think as a society, especially in engineers, we're very analytically driven. But yeah, we have to trust what we can do as parents. We are humans, and we were put on this earth before all of the websites and baby books and everything to teach you how to raise a child. So I think from an intuition standpoint, that's huge. I think there can be a lot of self-doubt, and be kind to yourself, especially when it comes to whatever transition that you're going through from the creation, the birthing, or returning to work. That it's all a phase, and it's going to move really quick, and you'll be back on track with your career, especially if you have a vision as to where you want to go, what you value, boundaries around what you're going to say yes to, what you're going to say no to, and having the right community and support. So having the Mom BA ladies around have been like my cheer squad. If there's tears happening, they're there. Or if, I'm struggling taking the next step on something, they encourage me to pursue what lights me up or energizes me. So it's been a great program, and I'm very thankful for it. And also from a career standpoint, I've seen a lot of growth. I just had a performance review, and it went really well in terms of how much has changed in the last 6 months since my return.
Excellent.
So it's not only from being a mom and making it work with work, it's really growing in all aspects of your life. And the financial part is one that we're touching on this month, which is a lot of fun.
Wow. Thank you so much for such a great, riveting conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about working moms, working parents, individuals with professions, getting everything done. I feel like there's hope, and people that are feeling overwhelmed should definitely look up Pros and Babes to get a few pointers. I've been speaking with Kenia Romanowska, founder of Pros and Babes, and professional engineer Melanie Richmond. And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I'm your host, Jerome James. Thank you for listening to this episode of Engineering the Future.
From all of us at OSPE, the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers, thanks for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.